Yeah, all good. All good. Nice, peaceful early morning walk here. Just gone for a nice walk right around and yeah, doing a bit of reflecting. I was just thinking how when I first started working in non-league as a performance coach, one of the sort of challenges, and this is just based on my own experience anecdotally, it might be different for you, but my anecdotal experience was one of the challenges was the frequent potential changes in opposition lineup, where in the pro game it's relatively more stable. And you play a team in the first round, it's more than likely it's going to be a similar, the same team in the second round. Or, for example, you might have a look and see how the other team plays a week or two before, and the likelihood is they're going to play similar formation, similar style of football, similar playing personnel. It's more sort of stable, at least in my experience. But in the non-league, it can change really rapidly. So even if you go out sometimes, sort of, do some scouting or get a match report, I think in my experience in a non-league, it's a little bit less reliable in the sense that you might have like complete change or big change in player personnel against the team you're playing against, and that can make a big difference if you've got players of different individual capabilities or if they're tactically different. So I think in non-league, in my experience, it was more about being flexible in your game plan. So having a bigger degree of flexibility in your game plan because of that. So yeah, in non-league, it's sort of thinking quicker on your feet, so to speak. So that sort of final training session before a game. Let's say you're training in non-league Tuesday, Thursday, for example, and the game's on Saturday. So on that Thursday session, with all the will in the world, you can sort of plan against the opposition you kind of intending on playing, but it can be completely different to the one that you had in mind. You're going to be playing type thing, and that kind of can obviously add to that unpredictability. So I think it's sort of, I suppose, it's thinking about variable permutations, but also I think with a really experienced manager, I was very fortunate in non-league to have learnt from one of the best in the business, Brent Peters, who really experienced, and I think the ability to be flexible even on the day to figure out the team formation pretty quickly is sort of key in the way they're playing, and any new player personnel, you've got to be really quick to see what the new player personnel, if you've not seen them before, bring to the party, because non-league team can get players from a non-league team, they can get players that have come in from abroad, from a pro game, and that can sort of be unique in itself, really. So I think for me, in the non-league, what I learnt a lot from working with Brent Peters at Baker Borough, what I really learnt a lot in the time I was there was to be able to be adaptive, albeit my role was more performance based. There's still some overlap in preparing for a game, and yeah, I think that it's really, really important to be adaptive and prepare for variable permutations, but also have the ability on the day to read any situations that may not have presented themselves on any sort of if you have any sort of scouting reports, have you got any information on the team having played them sort of prior, because that can sort of change dramatically. It's not always the case, obviously, but it's something that sort of, really came to my attention when I first started performance-based role in non-league. But it'd be great to hear your experience if you're a sort of coach in non-league or a player or a fan even. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that teams in non-league don't have stability and teams, but what I am saying is, in my experience, anecdotally, there's a much bigger chance you could be playing a completely different team or lineup than it would be in this more stable environment in terms of team lineups in the professional game. That's my take on it. Always great to hear what your take is on it.